I'm Diana Harrington. At 34, I work as a resident specializing in heart medicine, juggling my career with raising 3-year-old twins on my own. 8 weeks ago, I found myself on a gurney in an ER, my insides bleeding from a traffic collision. My fingers wouldn't stop trembling as I reached for my phone to contact my folks. I desperately needed someone, literally anyone, to keep watch over Emma and Noah for just a handful of hours while medical professionals fought to keep me alive. Instead, what arrived was a message in our family's group thread that stated, "You've been nothing but trouble and dead weight. Patricia and I are attending a Beyoncé concert with Rebecca this evening. Sort it out on your own." So I handled it. Right there from my hospital gurney, I contacted an emergency childcare agency, shelled out 3 times their usual fee, and reached a conclusion that would alter the course of my existence. I severed all ties with them entirely. The regular house payments, the medical coverage premiums, the automotive maintenance bills, all of it that I'd been quietly covering for the previous 9 years, disappeared. 14 days later, someone knocked on my entrance. Before I reveal who stood on my doorstep and the events that unfolded, please consider tapping that like button and hitting subscribe, but only if this narrative genuinely resonates with you. Leave a comment telling me your location and what hour it is where you are. I truly value these connections with all of you. Now, allow me to transport you back to the beginning of this journey. Growing up in the Henderson household taught me early on that affection operated on a ranking hierarchy. My elder sister, Rebecca, held the starring role. She'd always occupied that position. 3 years my senior, she possessed effortless beauty and a captivating presence that made our folks brighten up whenever she entered any space. When she declared her intention to chase a career in design and styling, Mother shed tears of happiness. Father labeled her our creative genius. When I announced my ambition to enter medicine, Father gave a single nod. "That's sensible." Those were his exact words. Sensible. I convinced myself it held no significance. I immersed myself in study materials, dominated every examination, and fought my way into one of the nation's premier medical training institutions. 4 years of undergraduate work, 4 years in medical school, 3 years of specialized residency focusing on cardiac care. The day I received my medical degree should have ranked among my proudest achievements. My folks showed up 2 hours behind schedule. "Apologies, darling," Mother murmured, her gaze not quite reaching mine. Rebecca had an urgent consultation with a prospective backer. We needed to transport her there first. No floral arrangements, no celebration meal, just a hurried photograph in the parking area before they rushed away because Rebecca required emotional reinforcement following her consultation. Contrast that with Rebecca's debut fashion exhibition 3 years prior. The entire family jetted to Manhattan, luxury accommodations, premium seating. Father uploaded 17 photographs on social media with captions reading, "Incredibly proud of our gifted daughter." I received a parking lot snapshot and a lukewarm "well done, sweetheart." I rationalized it to myself. Fashion is cutthroat. Rebecca required additional reinforcement. Medicine is secure. I could manage situations independently. However, what I failed to grasp then was that my folks' preferential treatment wasn't merely emotional, it carried financial weight, and I was the one shouldering the burden. It commenced 9 years ago, immediately following my completion of medical school. Father telephoned me one night, his tone strained with discomfort. "Diana, we're experiencing a bit of difficulty. The house payment is approaching and circumstances are challenging this month. Could you assist us? Just once." Just once. I wired $2,600 that very night without hesitation. They were my folks. Naturally, I would assist. Except just once transformed into every single month. The house payment, then their medical coverage premiums, $900 monthly. When Father's employer discontinued their benefits, then the crises, the vehicle repairs, the roof damage, the new heating system. I never declined. Not a single time. When I became pregnant with the twins, and their father abandoned me during my 5th month, I phoned my folks from the medical facility after a frightening bleeding incident. I felt terrified, isolated, desperately requiring support. "Oh, sweetheart, "We wish we could be there," Mother stated. But Rebecca is incredibly stressed following her exhibition in Paris. She genuinely requires us currently. They didn't arrive. Not for the delivery, not for the initial 4 weeks when I was barely sleeping, nursing 2 newborns while preparing for my certification examinations, yet the automatic wire transfers continued departing. $2,600 for the house payment, $900 for coverage, whatever additional amounts they required. I maintained a detailed record. I'm uncertain why. Perhaps some fragment of me needed to witness it in documented form. The figures were staggering. 9 years, $340,000 approximately. I never requested appreciation. I never anticipated recognition. However, I also never anticipated being labeled dead weight by the individuals I'd been supporting for nearly 10 years. That moment of truth was approaching. I simply hadn't realized it yet. The collision occurred on a Tuesday night. I was driving toward home following a 16-hour rotation. My eyelids felt heavy, but I remained sufficiently alert. The signal transitioned to green. I proceeded into the junction. I never observed the truck. It violated the red signal traveling 55. The impact struck my driver's side panel. Glass shattered everywhere. Metal shrieked. The world rotated, then went dark. I regained consciousness in an emergency vehicle, agony searing through my midsection. A recognizable face hovered above me. Diana. Diana. Can you hear me? Dr. James Carter, emergency medicine specialist at my medical facility. We'd collaborated for 2 years. James. My voice emerged incorrectly. Weak. What's occurring? You were in a collision. We're transporting you now. Suspected internal bleeding. You'll require surgical intervention. Surgery? The word struck me like a second impact. My children. I seized his arm. Emma and Noah. They're with the sitter. She departs at 8. James verified his watch. It's 7:20. 40 minutes. I had 40 minutes to locate someone to watch my children while physicians cut me open. I fumbled for my phone with trembling hands. Blood smeared across the display as I accessed my folks' number. It rang 4 times. Diana. Father's voice carried impatience. We're about to depart. What is it? Father. I require assistance. The words spilled out between gasps of agony. I was in a collision. I'm being transported to the medical facility surgery. Please, I require you and Mother to watch the twins just for several hours. Silence on the connection. Then wait a moment. I heard muffled voices. My mother's tone sharp and irritated. Rebecca's laughter in the background. The connection went quiet. Then my phone vibrated with a text alert. Family group thread. The message originated from my mother. Diana, you've been nothing but trouble and dead weight. We have Beyoncé tickets with Rebecca this evening. We've been planning this for months. Sort it out on your own. I read it twice, 3 times. The words remained unchanged. A second message materialized from Father. You're a physician. You're accustomed to medical facilities. Don't transform this into a larger issue than necessary. Then Rebecca. Not words, just a laughing emoji. That was it. That was my complete worth to them. A laughing emoji while I lay bleeding in an emergency vehicle. James was observing me. I didn't realize he could view my display until he spoke. Diana. His voice was careful. What did they state? I couldn't respond. Something had fractured open inside me, and it wasn't merely the internal bleeding. I require a phone, I whispered. A phone with internet. Mine's dying. He handed me his without question. I searched emergency childcare agencies, located one with round-the-clock availability, telephoned, explained the circumstances in clipped professional sentences. Yes, I would remit triple the fee. Yes, I would supply the sitter's contact for handoff instructions. Yes, I authorized payment immediately. It was completed in 4 minutes. James was still observing me when I returned his phone. He didn't articulate anything. He didn't need to. Can you capture those messages? I requested from my phone before it expires. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I can accomplish that. I closed my eyes as the emergency vehicle arrived at the medical facility bay. The agony was overwhelming now, but it wasn't originating from my midsection anymore. From that hospital gurney, with an IV in my arm and fear in my heart, I reached the simplest conclusion of my existence. The surgical procedure took 4 hours. Ruptured spleen, internal bleeding. Another several minutes, and I might not have survived. I spent 5 days in the medical facility, 5 days of IV drips, morphine fog, and nurses verifying my vitals every several hours. Not one telephone call from my folks, not one text, not one visit. The emergency childcare agency was costly, but worth every single penny. They coordinated with my regular sitter, kept Emma and Noah safe and fed, sent me daily photograph updates. Strangers demonstrated superior care of my circumstances than my own family. On day 3, I requested the nurse for my laptop. "Are you certain you're prepared for it?" she inquired. "You should be resting. I need to handle something." My hands were steady as I accessed my banking application. 9 years of automatic wire transfers stared back at me. Regular as clockwork. $2,600 on the 1st of every month, $900 on the 15th. I canceled them all. Then I opened my phone settings, blocked my father's number, my mother's, Rebecca's. There was no dramatic moment, no tears, no second guessing. It felt like releasing a weight I'd been carrying so extensively I'd forgotten it was there. James stopped by later that afternoon. He'd verified on me every day, bringing coffee and quiet companionship. "How are you feeling?" he inquired. I looked up at him, and for the first time in years, I told the truth. Better. For the first time in 9 years, I actually feel better. He didn't press for details. He just nodded like he understood. I knew the consequences were approaching. My folks would notice the absent funds. They would rage and cry and demand explanations. However, I didn't anticipate what arrived next. 14 days following my surgical procedure, I was finally home, moving slowly, still sore, but alive. It was a Saturday morning. I was preparing pancakes for Emma and Noah, their favorite weekend treat. The kitchen smelled like butter and maple syrup. Noah was attempting to stack his toy blocks. Emma was assisting by knocking them down. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on my front entrance. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, my heart rate spiking. If it was my folks, I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. I looked through the peephole and my breath caught. Standing on my doorstep was a tall gentleman in his 70s. Silver hair, neatly arranged, sharp blue eyes that I remembered from childhood. A posture that still carried the authority of 40 years on the federal bench. Grandpa William. I hadn't seen him in nearly 3 years. My folks always had excuses for why we couldn't visit. Too occupied, too distant, too inconvenient. I opened the entrance and he pulled me into an embrace so tight it made my surgical incision ache. "Diana." His voice was rough. "Let me look at you." He pulled back, his eyes scanning my face, then dropping to where my hand rested protectively over my midsection. "I know everything," he stated quietly. "Margaret told me. Aunt Margaret, my mother's younger sister, the only person in the family who'd ever openly questioned how my folks treated me. Grandpa, I don't." He held up a hand. "You don't need to explain anything, but I do need you to accompany me somewhere." He reached into his jacket and extracted an envelope. Cream-colored, elegant, formal. An invitation. My 70th birthday celebration next Saturday. The whole family will be there. His eyes met mine, and I have some things that need to be stated. Grandpa William sat at my kitchen table, observing Emma and Noah with a soft smile. They'd taken to him immediately, displaying their toys, demanding his attention. He gave it freely. "They look just like you did at that age," he stated. Same stubborn chin. I sat down 2 cups of coffee and took the seat across from him. "Grandpa, how did you discover about the collision?" "About everything?" "Margaret telephoned me the night it occurred." He wrapped his hands around the mug. "She'd heard through one of your cousins when she told me what your folks did." He stopped, jaw tightening. "I've observed this for years, Diana. The way Patricia and Michael treat you versus Rebecca. I'm old, but I'm not blind." I stared at my coffee. I thought maybe I was imagining it, making it larger than it was. You weren't. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd spent decades separating truth from lies. I was a federal judge for 40 years. I know how to read individuals. I know what favoritism looks like, what exploitation looks like. He leaned forward. Tell me something. Do you still have records of the funds you've sent them? I nodded slowly. Every transfer 9 years. Good. He sat back. I want you to compile a summary. Every payment, every date, every amount. Why? Because at my birthday celebration, in front of the entire family, I intend for the truth to emerge. His eyes were still, not as an attack, not as revenge, simply as facts. And facts, as I learned in 40 years on the bench, have a way of speaking for themselves. My hands trembled around my mug. What if they hate me? The ones who matter won't. He reached across and squeezed my hand. And the ones who do never deserved you. The next 14 days were a blur of preparation. I printed every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, 9 years of financial records organized chronologically, bound in a plain manila folder. Looking at it all together was staggering. Month after month, year after year, a river of funds flowing one direction. Aunt Margaret came over 3 days before the celebration. She was 55, sharp-tongued, and had always been the black sheep of the family for refusing to pretend everything was fine. She flipped through the folder, her expression darkening with each page. $380,000, she stated flatly. Diana, do you understand what this is? I know. This is more than most individuals make in 8 years of full-time work. She set down the folder. And they called you dead weight. I pressed my palms against the kitchen counter. I don't want to destroy the family, Aunt Margaret. I just want them to see, to acknowledge what I've done. You're not destroying anything. She stood and put her hand on my shoulder. You're just stopping the lie. They built their comfortable existence on your silence. You're not obligated to keep giving them that. I nodded, though my stomach churned with anxiety. What if everyone takes their side? Some might. Family is complicated. She shrugged. But your grandfather has a lot of influence. And more importantly, you have the truth. That evening, I got a text from a cousin I barely spoke to. Heard you and your folks had a falling out. Rebecca's been telling everyone you've been acting erratic since your collision. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I stared at the message. They were already spinning the narrative, painting me as unstable, preparing their defense before I even arrived. I hadn't wanted a fight, but it seemed they were bringing one anyway. Grandpa William's house was a colonial estate on 3 acres of manicured land, white columns, wraparound porch, the kind of place that whispered old money and quiet authority. I pulled into the circular driveway, my hands tight on the steering wheel. Emma and Noah were in their car seats, chattering about the big house and the balloons they could see through the windows. More than 40 vehicles lined the property. The whole family was here. I wore a simple navy dress. Professional, understated. I wasn't here to create a scene. I was here to tell the truth. The folder was in my bag. Inside, the celebration was already in full swing. Waiters circulated with champagne. A string quartet played in the corner. Crystal and silver glinted under the chandelier light. I spotted them immediately. My folks stood near the fireplace. Father in his best suit, looking distinguished. Mother in a cream-colored dress, laughing at something someone stated. They saw me at the same moment. Mother's laugh died. Father's face went rigid. For a long moment, none of us moved. Then Rebecca appeared. My sister glided over in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. Her smile was perfect. Her eyes were ice. Oh, Diana, she air-kissed my cheek. You made it. We heard about your collision. Nothing too serious, I hope. I met her gaze steadily. A ruptured spleen and internal bleeding. I almost died. Her smile flickered. Mother stated it was just a fender bender. Mother wasn't there. I shifted Noah to my other hip. None of you were. Rebecca's composure cracked for just a second. Then she recovered, patting my arm with false sympathy. Well, you look fine now. That's what matters. She drifted away. but I felt the first rumble of thunder. This was only the beginning. The attack arrived 30 minutes into the celebration. I was getting fruit punch for the twins when I heard Rebecca's voice deliberately loud carrying across the room. I'm incredibly worried about Diana, honestly. She was talking to a cluster of aunts and cousins near the dessert table. The collision genuinely affected her. She's been stating the strangest things. Severed all contact with mother and father for no reason. I kept my back turned, but every word landed like a small knife. Mother joined in, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. We've tried everything. Telephone calls, texts, she won't respond. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. Poor thing, someone murmured. She's always been the sensitive one, Rebecca added. Remember how dramatic she was as a teenager? I think the stress of being a single mother has just been too much. I felt eyes on me, pitying looks, whispered concerns. I stated nothing, just handed Noah his juice cup and smoothed Emma's hair. Aunt Margaret appeared at my side, her voice low and furious. They've been laying groundwork all week, telephoning relatives, planting seeds. They know something's approaching, and they're trying to discredit you first. I know. Are you okay? I looked across the room at my grandfather. He was observing the scene with an unreadable expression, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He gave me the smallest nod. I'm fine, I told Margaret. Let them talk. The room quieted suddenly. Someone clinked a glass. Grandpa William rose from his chair. At 70, he still commanded attention like the courtroom judge he'd been for 4 decades. Every eye in the room turned to him. Before we continue with the festivities, he stated, his voice carrying effortlessly, I have a few things I'd like to state. The air changed. This was it. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. Before Grandpa reveals what he knows, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a circumstance where someone tried to rewrite the truth about you? Where they painted you as the irrational one just because you finally stood up for yourself? Drop a comment and share your story, or just type truth if you've been there. And if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button. Trust me, what occurs next is worth staying for. Now, back to the celebration. Before Grandpa could continue, my father stepped forward. Father, wait. His voice was controlled, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Before you state anything, there's something the family should know. Grandpa raised an eyebrow. Michael. Father turned to face the room, every inch the concerned parent. As many of you may have heard, my daughter Diana has been going through a difficult time. He gestured toward me with a sad smile. Following her collision, she's been confused, distant. She's severed contact with her mother and me completely. Mother stepped up beside him, still clutching that handkerchief. We've only ever wanted the best for her, she stated, her voice trembling. But she's been spreading terrible lies about us, stating we abandoned her, that we don't love her. The room was silent. I felt 40 pairs of eyes boring into me. We've tried to be patient, Father continued, but it's been heartbreaking. We gave that girl everything. Everything, Rebecca added, her voice from across the room. She's even been claiming we refused to assist her during her collision, which is absolutely not true. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Someone near me let out a sympathetic murmur. The poor things. I stood frozen. Emma had buried her face in my neck, sensing the tension. Diana, an aunt I barely knew, approached me. Honey, is everything okay? Your folks are incredibly worried about you. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Then Grandpa William's voice cut through the room like a gavel. Are you finished, Michael? The question was quiet, mild even, but every person in that room heard the steel underneath. Father's confident expression faltered. I just thought the family should know. The family should know the truth, Grandpa interrupted, and I intend to give it to them. Grandpa William walked to the center of the room. His gait was measured, deliberate, the walk of a man who had presided over hundreds of cases and never once lost control of his courtroom. I've listened to your concerns, Michael, he stated. Patricia, Rebecca, you've painted a very clear picture of a troubled young woman who's turned against her loving family. He paused, letting the words hang. Now, I'd like to ask some questions. Father shifted uncomfortably. Father, I don't think this is the place. This is exactly the place. Grandpa's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. This is family, and families should know the truth about each other. He turned to my father. Michael, a simple question. Who has been paying the house payment on your home for the past 9 years? The color drained from Father's face. What? Your house payment? $2,600 monthly for 9 years. Who's been paying it? Father's eyes darted to Mother. We pay our own house payment. Do you? Grandpa reached into his jacket pocket and extracted a folder. My folder. Because I have here a complete record of bank wire transfers from Diana's account to your mortgage company every month for 108 consecutive months. A murmur rippled through the room. That's a misunderstanding, Mother stammered. Diana offered. We never requested. I'm not suggesting you held a weapon to her head, Grandpa stated calmly. I'm simply establishing facts. He opened the folder. Let me share some figures with the family. I think they'll find them illuminating. Across the room, Rebecca had gone pale. Father's hands were clenched at his sides. Mother looked like she might faint. And I stood there holding my children, my heart pounding as the truth finally began to surface. 9 years. Grandpa William read from the folder. Let's break it down. The room was utterly silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. House payments $234,000. He looked up. That's the home Michael and Patricia live in. The home they claim they pay for themselves. Someone gasped. Medical coverage premiums $81,000. When Michael's company discontinued their coverage, Diana picked up the bill. He flipped a page. Vehicle repairs, home maintenance, emergency expenses, approximately $48,000. Another page. Cash gifts and financial support for Rebecca's fashion ventures, $17,000. He closed the folder. Total $380,000 approximately. The silence was deafening. Aunt Margaret stepped forward. For context, everyone. That's more than most individuals make in 8 years of full-time work. Diana accomplished this while completing her medical residency and raising infant twins alone. She offered. Mother's voice cracked. We never forced her. No one stated you forced her, Grandpa replied. But I am curious. In 9 years of receiving the support, how many times did you state thank you? No answer. How many times did you visit her in the medical facility after her twins were born? Still nothing. How many times did you appear for her? My mother started crying. Not the delicate, sympathetic tears from earlier. Real ugly sobs. We thought she was fine, Father stated, his voice hollow. She never complained. She always managed. She managed, Grandpa repeated. Because she had to. Because you taught her that her needs didn't matter. An uncle near the back shook his head. Jesus, Michael. $380,000, and you called her dead weight. Father flinched like he'd been struck. But Grandpa wasn't finished. There's one more thing the family should hear, Grandpa stated. He extracted his phone, adjusting his reading glasses. 8 weeks ago, Diana was in a vehicle collision, a serious one. She was bleeding internally and being rushed to emergency surgical intervention. From the emergency vehicle, she telephoned her folks. Her children were home with a sitter who was about to depart. She needed someone to watch them for several hours. He paused, looking directly at my folks. This is the text message she received in response. From Patricia. I'll read it exactly. He cleared his throat. Diana, you've been nothing but trouble and dead weight. We have Beyoncé tickets with Rebecca this evening. Sort it out on your own. The room erupted. Oh my God, someone breathed. That's not. You're taking it out of context, Rebecca stated desperately. There is no context, Aunt Margaret snapped. That makes abandoning your daughter during a medical emergency acceptable. We didn't know it was serious, Father shouted. Did you inquire? Grandpa's voice cut through the chaos. Did you telephone her back? Did you come to the medical facility? Silence. The answer, for those wondering, is no, no, and no. A woman I recognized as a distant cousin stepped away from my folks, her face twisted with disgust. Several others followed. My mother was sobbing uncontrollably now. I didn't mean it like that. I was frustrated. I didn't think you didn't think your daughter might die, Grandpa finished. Because you never thought about her at all. He turned to face the room. I'm not requesting anyone to pass judgment. I'm simply presenting facts. What you accomplish with them is your own choice. He looked at me finally, his eyes soft. Diana, is there anything you'd like to state? I hadn't planned to speak. I'd come here expecting Grandpa to handle everything, to let the facts speak for themselves while I stood silently in vindication. However, looking around the room at my crying mother, my shell-shocked father, my sister's crumbling facade, I realized I had something to state after all. I handed Noah to Aunt Margaret and stepped forward. I didn't come here for revenge. My voice was steadier than I expected. I came here because Grandpa invited me, and because for 34 years, I've been living with a version of my family that wasn't real, a version where I was the strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't require anything. I looked at my folks. I believed you when you stated Rebecca required more support because her industry was harder. When you stated I could handle situations independently, I believed you and I tried to be what you required me to be. A tear slid down my cheek, but I didn't wipe it away. However, that night in the emergency vehicle, bleeding and terrified, I finally understood. I wasn't strong to you. I was convenient. I wasn't reliable. I was exploitable. And no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough to make you see me the way you see her. Several family members had moved closer to me. An aunt touched my arm. A cousin nodded with tears in his eyes. My father started to speak. Diana, I'm not finished. He stopped. I don't hate you, I stated quietly. However, I can't keep pretending this is acceptable. I can't keep purchasing love that should have been free. An uncle across the room turned to my father. How could you, Michael? This whole time you've been living off your daughter while treating her like nothing. The room was turning. I could feel it. So what now? Father's voice was desperate. You've humiliated us in front of the whole family. Are you satisfied? I shook my head slowly. I'm not satisfied, Father. None of this makes me satisfied. I took a breath. However, I'm also not sorry because this isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty. For the first time in 9 years, our family knows the truth. Not your version, not Rebecca's spin. The truth. Rebecca tried once more. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're monsters. We're your family. Families assist each other. You're right. I turned to face her. Families do assist each other. So, where were you when I was pregnant and alone? Where were you when I was raising newborns while preparing for boards? Where were you when I was bleeding out in an emergency vehicle? She had no answer. I looked back at my folks. From now on, I won't be sending funds. Not because I can't afford it, but because financial support should be a gift, not an obligation, and it should flow both ways in a family that actually cares about each other. My mother reached toward me. Diana, please. I'm also not severing you off forever, I continued. However, I require space, real space, not several weeks of guilt tripping followed by everything going back to normal. I require you to actually think about what you've accomplished. And if someday you can acknowledge it, genuinely acknowledge it, maybe we can rebuild something. I took Noah back from Aunt Margaret. However, I won't hold my breath. A great aunt approached me, taking my hands in her weathered ones. I'm incredibly sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea. All these years I thought you were the one who had it easy. I know, I stated softly. Everyone did. That's how it was supposed to look. All right, I want to verify with you again. That moment when I finally stated those words, when I chose myself for the first time, did it resonate with you? I know so many of us have been taught that family means sacrifice no matter what. However, here's the thing. Boundaries aren't betrayal. Stating no isn't selfish. Type boundaries in the comments if you agree. And if you know someone who requires to hear this narrative, share it with them. Now, let's see what occurred in the aftermath. My folks departed the celebration early. No one stopped them. No one stated goodbye. Father assisted Mother to the vehicle while she sobbed into his shoulder. Rebecca followed with her head down, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The silence they left behind was heavy, but not uncomfortable. More like the quiet after a storm passes. In the days that followed, the consequences were swift. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives. Cousins I'd barely spoken to in years reached out to apologize. Aunts and uncles who'd always believed my folks' narrative of the perfect family were re-evaluating everything. "I always thought you were the difficult one." Cousin Rachel texted me. "Rebecca made it sound like you pulled away for no reason." I'm incredibly sorry I believed her. The family group thread, the one where I'd received that devastating message, went silent. Then it was deleted entirely. More significantly, my folks found themselves quietly excluded from family gatherings. When my cousin Michael had his 40th birthday 3 weeks later, they weren't invited. When Aunt Margaret hosted Easter brunch, their names weren't on the list. No one made a formal announcement. No one declared sides. They simply stopped being welcome. My mother telephoned me from a new number 14 days after the celebration. I let it go to voicemail. "Diana, please. We need to talk. This has all been blown out of proportion. Your father is devastated. I'm devastated. Can't we just move past this?" I listened to it once. Then I deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't a reset button. I knew that now. It was a release for me, not for them. And I wasn't ready to release anything yet. However, the financial consequences, those were just beginning. 3 months after the celebration, I got a telephone call from Aunt Margaret. "They're selling the home." I set down my coffee cup. "What? Your folks?" "They put the home on the market last week. Word is they couldn't keep up with the house payments." I should have felt something. Satisfaction, vindication, maybe even guilt. Instead, I just felt tired. "Where will they go?" "Your Uncle Frank is letting them stay in his guest house temporarily." Margaret paused. He made it very clear it's conditional. They need to get jobs. Real jobs. Not just waiting for someone else to bail them out. Jobs. My folks hadn't worked full-time in years. Father took early retirement at 55. Mother had never worked outside the home. They'd been living off my funds, and they hadn't even realized how dependent they'd become. "What about Rebecca? Can't she assist?" Margaret laughed. "It wasn't kind. Rebecca's been drowning since her divorce. Word got out about the celebration. Someone in the family knows someone in fashion. She lost a major design contract. Last I heard, she's waitressing part-time." I stared out my kitchen window at Emma and Noah playing in the backyard. "I don't want them to suffer," I stated quietly. "I know you don't, sweetheart. That's because you're a good person." Margaret's voice softened. "However, they didn't suffer for 9 years because you were supporting them. They didn't grow. They didn't learn. You stopping wasn't cruel. It was necessary." She was right. I knew she was right. That evening, I sat down with my new budget. The $3,500 I used to send my folks every month now went into a college fund for the twins. They'd never worry about student loans. They'd never carry someone else's burden the way I had. That felt like justice enough. The telephone call came on a Tuesday night, 6 months after Grandpa's celebration. I was putting the twins to bed when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Diana?" Rebecca's voice was different, smaller. The polished confidence that had always defined her was gone. "Rebecca, please don't hang up." She took a shaky breath. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I require to state something." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "I'm listening. I'm sorry." The words came out cracked. "I'm incredibly sorry for everything. For the way I treated you. For the things I stated. For laughing at that text message when her voice broke. When you were dying, I laughed. What kind of person accomplishes that?" I waited. I didn't know. She continued about the funds. Not all of it. "I knew Mother and Father were struggling, but I thought they were managing. I didn't realize it was you. For 9 years. Diana, how did I not know? Did you ever inquire?" Silence. "No," she whispered. I didn't because I didn't want to know. I liked being the favorite. I liked that everything came easy for me. She laughed bitterly. Nothing's easy anymore. I heard about the contract. Yeah. Turns out your reputation matters in this industry. Funny how that works. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm not requesting funds, she finally stated. Or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I was, what mother and father accomplished, I see all of it. I took a deep breath. Then start from there. Stand on your own feet. Be better. Yeah. Her voice was thick with tears. I'm trying. Good. I hung up. And for the first time, I felt something like hope. 6 months after that telephone call, 1 year after the collision that changed everything, I stood in my new apartment observing the sun set through the windows. It wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen. But it was 5 minutes from the medical facility in a good school district. And most importantly, it was mine. No house payments to folks who didn't appreciate them. No coverage premiums for individuals who called me dead weight. Just rent, utilities, and a college fund growing steadily every month. Emma and Noah were at Grandpa Williams' house for the afternoon. He'd become a fixture in our lives over the past year. Every Sunday he'd pick them up for adventures, the zoo, the park, ice cream that I pretended not to know about. They're good children, he told me once. You're raising them right from him. That meant everything. Aunt Margaret had become more than family. She was a friend. We had dinner together twice a month. She'd assisted me navigate the emotional aftermath of the celebration, of setting boundaries, of learning to prioritize myself. You know what I admire about you? She stated recently. You didn't become bitter. A lot of individuals would have. You had every right to. What would be the point? I'd replied. Bitterness is just drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. As for my folks, we hadn't spoken directly, but I knew from family whispers that they were still at Uncle Frank's. Father had gotten a part-time job at a hardware store. Mother was accomplishing bookkeeping for a local church. They weren't thriving, but they were surviving. Some days I wondered if they thought about me, if they missed me, if they regretted anything. However, those weren't my questions to answer. I'd spent 34 years carrying their weight. It was finally time to put it down. If you've made it this far, I want to leave you with something. Not advice. I'm not qualified to tell anyone how to live their existence, but maybe a reflection, a lesson I learned the hard way. For 34 years, I believed that love was something you could earn, that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, requested for nothing in return, eventually the individuals who were supposed to love me would see my value. I was wrong. Love isn't a transaction. It's not a reward for being useful. And no amount of funds, time, or energy can purchase something that should have been freely given from the start. The family I have now, Grandpa William, Aunt Margaret, friends like James who appeared when my own folks wouldn't. They didn't love me because of what I could provide. They loved me because of who I am. That's the difference. And it took almost dying on an operating table to understand it. I don't know what occurs next with my folks. Maybe someday they'll truly change. Maybe they'll reach out with genuine remorse, ready to rebuild something real. If that occurs, I'll consider it. However, I won't wait for it. I won't shape my existence around the hope of something that may never come. My existence is mine now. My energy, my resources, my love, and if the individuals who raised you call yourself